Oh, why you got to start the recording right when I'm talking? Oh, well, as I look around the boxes in the room, I'm really bummed that we're not, breaking bread together and having an opportunity to catch up in person. That's really one of the things I miss a whole lot about our current existence in the world. But as I look around the boxes here, I really these faces are all familiar. You guys we see you again and again, and it's really wonderful. In our workshops, on our boards, on our committees. It just is a reaffirmation for me that church is about people. It's about coming together in the spirit. And here we are. But so I want to thank you for that, because every church, every volunteer organization, we can't do what we do without the hard work, the hours, the time you guys put into supporting the conference. And this particular group, the Friends of the Conference, has distinguished itself by also writing a check and contributing some of your hard-earned treasure back to the church and to the conference. And that's deeply appreciated. I have the privilege of sitting on seeing what's going on in the foundation and managing our assets and stewarding them so we can provide the best support that's possible for the conference. But we can't do it alone. We need you all to help out, and you guys are, and you have stepped up, and you do step up, and we really honor you and thank you from the bottom of our hearts for that. So thank you all. It's great to see you. I'll be seeing you online again, and gosh, I sure hope we can see you in person. I can see you guys in person soon. I'm going to make some rounds to some of the outer islands soon, so you guys, Warren's going to scold me, neighbor islands soon. So I'm looking forward to catching up with each of you when I can. So aloha and thank you.
Thank you, Andy. I just want to repeat what Andy said. If you haven't scrolled through the couple of screens of Zoom screens that may be on your device, please do so. Look at each other, right? We are part of the ohana of the conference, and I want you to make sure that you're connecting with each other as well, especially if we're from different islands. Those are the people we miss the most. We could get together on island, but of those friendships and relationships that are extended across the islands, those are the ones that, after 3 years of COVID, we're really hungering to kind of reestablish the closeness in that relational piece. So I just want to offer you that time to do that as well. What I thought I would do today is invite you on a journey to peer behind the curtains of some of my thinking that I've been doing lately, and coming to understand what it is the Hawaii Conference is about. Now, you already know that, but I'm the new person on the block, right? So I've been trying to figure this out. What is it that we're really about? Another way to put that is, what is our niche as the Hawaii Conference? And so that's kind of been a journey I've been on. The presentation I'm going to present allows you to kind of peer behind that curtain, as I said, and invite you to be on this journey with me. So to do that, I'm going to share my screen. This past spring, that's not where the journey started, but it is where it culminated in a bit. But this past spring, Associate Conference Minister Valerie Ross and I were part of a training called Executive Certificate in Religious Fundraising, Snorville. I know that, right? It's like, could you give it a bigger, boring title than that? However, they started off with a concept called the hedgehog concept. And some of you probably know this, and some of you have probably used it. It was new to me, and I really got captivated by it because it promised, and I'm quoting here, to help an organization obtain piercing clarity. Well, that caught my attention. The Hawaii Conference, as are most church settings, can at times be an unwieldy body of believers. Yeah, that's what churches tend to do from time to time. So I jumped at the chance for piercing clarity. In the hedgehog concept, it's a very simple design, right? A Venn diagram of 3 circles, and where the 3 overlap, right there. Well, that's the point of piercing clarity, or at least that's the promise of this concept. And the over circles talk about 3 questions that we want to look at. So the first circle, the question is, what drives our resource engine? Or another way of asking that question is, why do people give to the conference? What motivates that giving? So that's the first question. The second question is, what are we deeply passionate about in the Hawaii conference? And another way to ask that very same question is, what stirs us up? That's where our passions are, right? And the final question then is, what are we best at? What is it that we're unique at? Is what the presenter in the training was calling it, or as I've learned to call it, what is our niche in the world, in Hawaii, in the Pacific? Those type of questions. So those were the 3 questions. And when you get their answers, and right here where they overlap, that's that piercing clarity. And I was excited about that. Anything to help bring clarity works for me. So the first circle, what drives our resource engine, you all had already answered in the strategic plan, right? And it's our mission statement. Sent forth by the Spirit, we walk humbly in Christ's footsteps, pursuing peace, justice, and the renewal of creation. Why is it that you support either through the Friends of the Conference or maybe your congregation through our church's wider mission? Why is it that we are supporting the conference work so that we might pursue the ministry Jesus pursued? That is what drives our resource engine. Your generosity with your church, your association, our ministry partners, and yes, the conference is an investment in engaging in those acts of ministry Christ engaged in: peace, justice, and the renewal of creation. There are other words to use, more biblical words like redemption, salvation, and sustained living with God, right? That's another way to answer that question as well. The second circle is a slightly harder question, right? What are we deeply passionate about? And from my perspective, there are many issues which raise our passions in this conference. We are passionate about the 2,600 acres the Conference Foundation oversees. We are passionate about the overthrow of Queen Liliuokalani and its political and cultural legacy. And we are passionate about continuing God's good news in Jesus Christ to future generations. That's the gift of the missionaries, right? And we're passionate about passing that gift along. And if we are honest, and I thank you because this group does ask for honesty, and there are lesser things that drive our passions as well, yeah? Such as who fits and who doesn't and why, or who can force the will upon who, or those who justify the means that they are undertaking by the ends that they are pursuing. As I've said, the Hawaii Conference can be an unwieldy body of believers. It doesn't mean we love each other less or think less of one another. It's just naming some of those cross currents, yeah, that are in the bay, if you would, of the Hawaii Conference. The third circle, from my perspective, asks the hardest question of all. What are we best at? And I admit, I started answering this question from a mischievous side, so hang in there with me. So I thought, we're pretty good at fighting each other. We seem to have that down pretty well. And then the conflict in Ukraine erupted, and I thought, oh no, those people fight better than we fight. So that's not what we're best at. And then I thought, maybe it's aloha. Maybe we aloha the best in the world. And then I got to think, I don't know the world, and I don't know all of how aloha gets expressed. So I kind of backed off from that. And I changed the question. Instead of what are we best at in the world, I asked, what are we, or what does the Hawaii Conference do better than the other 35 conferences that compose the United Church of Christ? And it dawned on me, we wrestle with the tension of the gospel's God-given nobility and human entrenchment. That tension, right, between the gospel that brings salvation to the world and the human agenda that tarnishes it and often does bad things in the name of Christianity or bad things in the name of the gospel, again, where the means or the ends supposedly justify the means, right? So that's what we do as the Hawaii Conference, is that we wrestle with that. If this outrigger canoe that we call the Hawaii Conference is navigating choppy waters, it is because we are determined to fully face the legacy of the arrival of the gospel in Hawaii in both, right? Both forms, its God-given nobility to bring salvation and its entrenchment in human agendas that use the gospel, unfortunately, for personal gain. So that's what I ultimately came to. So, piercing clarity, right? What is it? Yeah, what is the niche of the Hawaii Conference? What we about here in Hawaii and in the Pacific? And this is what came to me. We advance God's good news in Jesus Christ to non-gospeled areas while living in the tension between the gospel's God-given nobility and its human agenda entrenchment. We advance God's good news in Jesus Christ to non-gospeled areas while living in the tension between the gospel's good God-given nobility and its human agenda entrenchment. Now, I've added here some vocabulary meant to capture, right, that notion of our mission statement about pursuing the ministry of Christ. Advance the gospel to non-gospeled areas. I want to unpack that for clarity. Traditionally, non-gospeled areas meant cultures and peoples, right, where Christianity is unknown or fairly new. When done right, that, of course, is a beautiful thing. However, all of us gathered here today, we are living in the tension of the model when it is done wrongly as well. So we want to acknowledge that. And I'll talk more about this tension later on in the state of the conference address. Right now, I want to explore with you the non-gospeled area and how your gifts through the Friends of the Conference help us advance the gospel into those areas. These are areas of our lives, personal or public, that are hungering and hurting for God's good news in Jesus Christ. And here is where your investment has tremendous influence on the ministry and mission we are able to do. When a minister is shut down due to the grief in his life from the loss of both a sister and a brother within months of one another, and we can offer grief counseling due to your generous investment in the Friends of the Conference, God's good news in Jesus Christ is advanced to a non-gospeled area. When one of our immigrant congregation contacts us and shares how a neighbor is calling them, I'm quoting here, rats, and running cars around the church property while worship is being held, and we are able to use one of our new ACMs to address this issue both publicly and privately, then God's good news in Jesus Christ is advanced to a non-gospeled area, in part, right, due to your generous investment in the Friends of the Conference that helped us reach our goal of deployed associate conference ministers. when a conflict erupts in a local congregation that derails the church's pastor search process, and we are able to be in that church and host conversations of understanding and resolution, which allows for a positive outcome of the search process. God's good news in Jesus Christ is advanced to non-gospel areas. This is the influence, if you would, of your generosity throughout the conference, advancing God's good news in Jesus Christ to non-gospel areas while living in the tension between the gospel's God-given ability and its human agenda and entrenchment. So I just want to say, along with Andy and the rest of the staff, mahalo, right? Thank you so much for being an influencer. Thank you so much for being a multiplier of our resources that help us stretch them into these other areas. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for advancing the gospel of Christ in Hawaii. And with that, those are the ends of my formal remarks, and we will open up the floor for questions from you, for thoughts, ideas. This is your time to speak whatever you would like.
David, this is it.
Yes.
I have a question for you. How are you?
You're going to make me answer that in public? Overall, I'm good with a modest level of anxiety. Is that a nice answer or not?
Well, I just want to ask you a question. You encourage us to answer a question.
I did. I was hoping for something less personal, but go ahead, ask the personal question.
I don't think my question is personal. I just want to see how you're doing.
Good. Thank you, Yese. Overall, right, there's different ways to answer that question. This week has found us all busy in the office here, and so that's where my anxiety kind of raised from. Are we doing the IT pieces? Is everybody in place? Those type of things. So that's good. We're also dealing with some illnesses running through the office. So for the past 2 weeks, we've not had a full contingent within the office, which always adds to anxiety as well, because my fear is, right, they'll finally call upon me to do something and I'll be like, I don't know how to do it. That's what we pay you to do. But I have to tell you, the staff has been very, very good at following through on the things we've asked them. I think overall, when we look at the conference, I think we're going to be in a good place. We have later tomorrow the conversation, or the vote actually, on the conference budget that I do have some concern about. Not in the sense that it's a bad budget or anything, but just in the sense that we're communicating what I think we're communicating about the budget and where it's at. And so that will be, once that vote is taken, I think my anxiety will go down a lot. And that's just me. That doesn't reflect upon you all. Nobody has said anything bad to me about the budget. It's just where I tend to put my anxiousness in these type of weeks. The budget will set us, I think, in a strong place for next year. It'll allow us to do the things that we are hoping to do, and even begin to add, right? Because this, not the budget itself, because it was in last year's budget too, but also at this annual meeting, we'll be voting in the new missional team, innovation and engagement. And so I'm very excited for that. That has been a desire of mine since arriving here, and it's exciting to see that coming to some fruition with the capable hands of Valerie Ross leading that team. But we also know we got a lot of work to do it, because now that once it becomes an official ministry team, that means we got to add to it, right, to make sure we have representations from all of the islands and associations and things of that nature. So it's that type of work. So those are the kind of the things that are on my radar, and every once in a while may wake me up out of the sleep, although it's more likely my wife telling me to turn over because I'm snoring in her ear. But that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. Thank you.
This is Tino at Yao Church. I just want to thank you, David and Lori, and all the conference staff for an amazing 5 years and 3 months that I've been here at Yao Church, for your great leadership. And who doesn't love Lori's sense of humor? Thank you so much. As you all know, I'll be transitioning out as pastor of Yao Church. And so I just wanted to say mahalo for everything you have done here for Yao Church and with Yao Church. And again, for the amazing workshops that you brought, and David, for being innovative and bringing all the pastors together, for the great support. So what a wonderful time it has been here. So thank you.
Thank you, Tino. We do have the whole staff here, so if you have a question that deals with somebody other than me, feel free to do that. I should say the whole staff minus Andy, who's had to leave, of course, but I'm happy to throw Nan under the bus any day for foundation purposes.
David, I have a comment.
Yes, Linda.
I appreciated in your presentation your acknowledgement of how the wounds from the past are still very present with us, and have an effect on how some things are perceived and how some things are done. And I appreciated your acknowledgement of that, because I think it is something that the conference really needs to acknowledge and put effort into healing. Yeah. So thank you for acknowledging that.
Thank you, Linda, for that. The Mahalo extends both ways. The extensive work of the Justice and Witness team and some of your subgroups, I think, has been very important to help raise that up and give it some consciousness that it needed to do. Just for you all, I've been little lack to say this publicly because we don't have it all worked out yet, but we being the council, is looking to involve a consultant or a person to help us think through some of our larger fractures, right, and help us to work toward some resolution of those fractures. We are at the point of still interviewing possible people to do that. And I was hoping by here I would be able to announce something, but the reality is that one of the people we needed to get in touch with was off island until June. And so I've got an email out asking for a conversation, but I don't have a response yet as this person gets settled back into their office, so to speak. But please stay tuned. We're hoping that probably by the end of the summer then you'll hear more about that. If y'all want to talk to each other, that's fine too as well. If you want to reach out and say hi, Lori, or hi, Ellie, or whatever, that's fine too. We're here to just be together and to enjoy each other's company as well.
Mahalo
David?
to the amazing conference staff.
Thank you.
David, this is David Takaga. I think a lot of times we just appreciate you and your staff all the time. You know, we have a lot of confidence in all of you, and I think you folks just try so hard and you're sensitive, and you're open, and nothing. And you know, this is a testy world, isn't it? I mean, it just doesn't seem like you can go a week and everything's just roses and it's what you think it should be. But no, I mean, there are curveballs all the time, and big ones. I mean, really big ones. We have our problems here in Hawaii, and the mainland has even bigger ones, many would say. But I think the way you and your staff has dealt with these issues with such care and love, I'm just always feeling so good about all of you. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, David.
David, this is Martin Zorn. And, you know, again, thank you, as everyone else has said, to you and your staff. But as friends of the conference, as we look forward, what can we be doing to further help you and your staff, you know, progress in the goals that you have?
That's a good question. And it's exactly what you are doing, right? You all are going the extra mile. You all represent a group that gives beyond our church's wider mission. You give directly to the conference of that money. I often say it's our multiplier, right? It helps us meet some of these stretch goals that our typical budget just falls short of. And with your all's contributions, we're able to move into those areas as well. So I do appreciate that. I do want to say, when I arrived, our Friends of the Conference was about a $20,000 annual or $20,000 stream of revenue for us. It is now $35,000. So I want to thank you all. You have stretched yourself, and that's good. We appreciate that. And I'm, you know, of course, I would say keep stretching yourself. That helps us. But on the other hand, just what you're doing, you're showing up, you're being supportive to us, and you all give great feedback. So the more you talk to us, the more we hear from you, the more we can adjust if we need to adjust, or the more we can strengthen if we're really hot on something in a good way. All of that plays into how we maneuver things around throughout the year, or if we need to de-emphasize something. If we started out with something and all of a sudden we find out that's the wrong thing. I've always appreciated my relationship with Linda Rich. She's chair of Justice and Witness, because she says that. She's one who says, you know, she doesn't say it directly, she's much more kinder, but basically she says, you know, you're thinking along these lines, but you're missing these lines. And that's crucially important. We all have our blinders, and I certainly have mine, and I'm happy to have those blinders removed. And you all do that in various ways. Whenever I'm in conversations with you individually, or if I'm at your church, I do appreciate those conversations. I take back so much more than just what you said, right? I'm always learning, always asking that question: what can we do better in order to serve you and to serve the conference as a whole? So thank you, Martin, for that question. I would just say, keep talking to us and letting us know how we're doing all around. That is very helpful for us.
Oh, I was going to say, just send us food. That's good.
Well, if you want to keep us happy, send the food.
I have a word.
Yes, Boyd.
I'm Boyd. I'm the outgoing president of the state council, but through my years, the staff at the conference have been real supportive of us. You know, I've been interfacing a lot with Chris and Laurie, and throughout these years, and I know the other staff members were supportive in helping them assist the information that we normally look for and stuff. But before I never even knew what Friends of the Conference was. But through the years, I've learned, and we have begun to support them even with our church. We started to have them on our budget, and this year we have also budgeted to support the Friends of the Conference out of the State Council's budget. So we are thankful for their help. This week, they were very helpful for the State Council. They hosted some of us at the conference when we Zoomed our annual meeting. And lo and behold, they fed us, and that is the food they're supposed to have fed us today. So I don't know about you guys, but we already got our meals, so we're not going to grumble about not feeding us. So I thank the conference for that, and appreciate you folks, and hopefully you folks continue to support the new officers that is coming on board for the State Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Boyd. And every one of you gets a rain check, right? Next year, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it right and make sure that there's food and conversations in a more intimate way than we can do here today. I had played with the idea of maybe sending everybody a granola bar, and then I thought, yeah, that's terrible. So
David, this is Alan Akana from Koloa Union Church on Kauai. And first of all, I wanted to say, if anybody would like some mangoes, I have about 100 to 200 dropping every day. So if you're on Kauai, just let me know when you want to come by. If you're not on Kauai, just, fly over and pick up as many as you want and hang out. But David, I wanted to thank you especially for your presentation at the beginning and for your ability to look at the big picture and really just kind of help the rest of us see what it looks like from your perspective. And I wanted you, if you wouldn't mind for a moment, to give us a little more of what your thoughts are on the term non-gospeled, because as soon as I saw that, my first thought was, well, what about poorly gospeled or inappropriately gospeled or something along those lines? And one of the reasons for that is it seems like most of the places where I've served in ministry, which is Hawaii twice, Montana, Utah, Texas, and California, it seems like in Hawaii, there's more people that have some kind of Christian church background than any other place I've ever lived. But I also feel like a lot of the gospel that they've received, to a certain degree anyway, is missing some depth. And sometimes it's missing some very important social justice components. And sometimes it's just darn judgmental. And so to me, I was just wondering what you meant by non-gospeled, and if you have any additional thoughts about any of those comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Yes, I'll be glad to bore you all with that piece. Of everything that was written in that statement, that's the one I kept going back to. I tried different words. I tried different thoughts. Part of the hedgehog concept, if you delve into it, is looking at your history. And you're saying, what out of our history is still influencing us? And so because of how Christianity started here, the mission movement, the language that they were using, I just kept returning to that piece. Now, clearly, I don't define it as it was, defined 100, 200 years ago now, but I moved beyond that definition, I'll put it that way. But I kept it, maybe more so for me than anybody else, just as a recognition of that part of the concept, that we don't just appear out of a vacuum. We are always the legacy of some thoughts, somebody's ideas, And now we have a choice, right? How do we pass that on, or if we pass that on? But we are the product of that. So for me, and I appreciate what you said, behind that, there's even a more simple step before that, right? You're getting some of my theology behind there. My theology is fairly simple. Everything humanity does is in need of God's redemptive touch. All the poor crap that we do is in need of God's redemptive touch. All the noble and wonderful things we do can be refined even further by God's redemptive touch. So that's a fairly simple theology. We can debate whether it's good theology or not, but that's just kind of the perspective I come from. And so you're kind of stuck with it. You don't have to believe it yourself, but you are stuck with me, unfortunately. And so for me, when I think of non-gospel, and hopefully was in those examples, right, it is those areas of life where the other language I was looking to use with, but it took us off in a different area, was light and darkness. So those areas of life where darkness tends to be stronger than light, those are that's what I mean by non-gospel areas, and maybe we should go back and kind of reclaim that language instead. And so, the minister in grief, the immigrant church, facing prejudice from their neighbor, the congregation that is having a spat over their search process, those type of things are for me non-gospel areas. Now, each one of those, right, is a Christian setting, so I don't mean non-Christian by that sense. But I do like your understanding as well, right, of poor gospel or inappropriately gospeled, because we all carried that with us as well. We experience God, I'm going to say incarnationally, we experience God through our five senses, so through our bodies. And one of the ways we experience God is through the sense of hearing and learning, or seeing and learning if we're reading something. And what we always learn may or may not always be correct, or may not be something that was correct at one time, but retains its correctness as humanity moves on down history or something of that. So I have no problems with the words you used, and maybe we can adopt them too. I got no, this isn't set in stone, so I got no problem massaging this at all. Trust me on that one. And if you all have better words that we use, you'll finally resolve some of the stuff I've been wrestling with and going back and forth on several times, and ran out of time because it's okay, I'll just settle with this because I can't get away from it yet. But anyway, that's what I mean by non-gospel. It's just the areas of darkness and light, or the areas where ego versus ego needs versus a selfless self-love would be another way to talk about those type of areas as well. There's all type of language out there. None of it to me seemed easily packed into this statement. So there you go. That's why I wound up where I wound up. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you for that explanation. That's very helpful. And I'm sorry if that was boring at all to anybody else.
Hi, David. This is Sharon Matsuyama. And I just wanted to echo what everybody has been sharing about their gratitude for the work that you and the conference staff have been doing. But I would also like to add a big mahalo to Andy Bunn with the foundation for the information he's clarified for us and for our Hawaiian churches. So thank you, Andy, for being there as well. And Laureen.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Sharon, for raising Laureen and Andy up in the staff of the council. Nan's a part of that. I never know when Andy says I'm doing research. I've learned that's code for I've asked Nan and Laureen to look up stuff for me, is what I've learned. So I appreciate the team that he has and how they work well together around these issues, and particularly the research piece.
David, this is Eileen Trout from La Huiokalani. And our church hadn't been contributing to the Friends of the Conference. And so we began, as we kept hearing it marketed more. But having you speak about the whole program and what it means, I have a better understanding that we're reaching out to the human part of our work in our church. And I like that so much. And I have to compliment for you being the Alakai, being our leader. I think that The Friend has been a marvelous publication. It has dealt with issues of reconciliation, dealt with caring for our Malama, our Aina, and it is contributed by various people in our conference. And I just have to compliment you and the whole staff. I mean, I'll ask Chris for something and she answers me in half an hour, get my answer right away. So I really appreciate this. And we like being part of the Friends of the Conference. Aloha.
Thank you, Eileen. Let's see, our editorial team, right? Julie Buto is our communications director. This is something I asked her to pick up after I arrived, so this is fairly new for her. Kristen Young, Lori Yamashiro, Jonathan Roach. Am I leaving anybody off that team? And this team has been fantastic. They are the ones who said, let's expand the Friend, and we added one page, right? So 2 pages front and back. They are the ones who said, let's look at our themes and let's begin providing images that help draw us into those themes. And so kudos to them. And I appreciate them as well. They are also the ones that said, David, your article was due 2 days ago. Please get it to me, and are somewhat nice to me when they do that. So I do appreciate that as well. So thank you, Eileen, for that. I appreciate it. I think we had, I'm going to look at the chat. I think I saw a question or a comment come up. I'm concerned about your move. May God's grace continue with you. Thank you, Linda. Let me explore that a little more. My apologies. I'm secondary in this discussion. Andy actually would be the lead in this discussion. So Nan or Lori or Ann, if I leave out something, feel free to speak up or say you got it wrong. This is what we're doing. This has been a long discussion. It actually preceded my Andy's and my arrival. I arrived in September 2019, Andy in December 2019, and already the Conference Foundation subcommittee, property management subcommittee, I'll get the right name drawn up, had a subcommittee on 1848 Nu'uanu, where our present office is. And that subcommittee was looking at a host of questions. We're in an office space that's easily twice the size we need. That tells you about the shrinking conference staff over the years. So it's costly for us to operate because many of the offices sit empty. And we don't need to be blowing cold air into empty offices, right? It's also, at the time, we were behind in maintenance, delayed maintenance. For those, when we were meeting, for those who remember back in the third pod, you could go back there and you could see this funnel system we had coming off the roof into the hall back there because there was a major leak. And then if you came a little later, you were greeted by a bucket out front that said, do not move, because there was a secondary leak there in the front pod and all that sort of stuff. So the building was aging, and it was felt by that subcommittee that it was time to look at new residential possibilities for the office, because of the size of the building, the cost of maintaining it, and then the cost of all the delayed maintenance that was there. So the decision was finally made to put it on the market and look for a buyer. in the midst of that, we did bring the building up. We did a lot of that delayed maintenance was done because otherwise a potential buyer talk us down from our price. And so the roof is now not leaking, woo, and particularly when it rains, or our exterior has been painted up, some guttering work, things of that nature have all been accomplished. And Laureen is not able to be with us today, but I thank Laureen, who has coordinated all of that work and kept us safe in the meantime while it was being done. And so we do have a potential buyer for the building. They have met our asking price. They have not signed yet, so that's why nothing's public yet. And until there is a signature, we don't feel we can go public about this. Once that is signed, then we will initiate a move. So whether earlier on we had really anticipated we would be moving in the month of August, now we don't know when we'll be moving because that's been delayed. And for all we know, the potential buyer may walk away from us. That's still something that's in the air. But once a buyer signs on the line, we will move. We do have some space that we were looking at. Again, we're not announcing that because we don't know when we'll be there. And if our move is delayed, if it'll still be there by the time we do move, that's the other side of it, right? So that's why nothing is being said out loud. The sale of the building will help to reestablish some of the endowments that was lost over the years with the higher draws. Some of it will be set aside for some other purposes as well. And Andy knows all of that details, and maybe Nan does. I'm a little... to be honest, I've not focused on those type of details. My focus has been elsewhere. But we are looking forward to being a space that's a little more intimate for us. It will make us easier to work together as a team. Right now, we're all in our little offices separated from each other, which during COVID has been a blessing, right? We don't have to worry about 6 feet. We got 20 and 30 feet that we can spread between each other because of the space we're in. But a little more intimate environment will help us to work a little bit better as a team, as we can double check with each other, particularly when we're on projects that has multiple staff involved in the projects, right? So those type of things. So those are the type of things I could say about the move. And I can also say it's not imminent yet. It's just still somewhat of a hope and a dream at this time. Others?
Well, I've already spoken, but I did want to make just a quick shout out to our associate conference ministers, Jonathan and Valerie, who work hard constantly and so much behind the scenes, I think, and do not get recognized for a lot of their hard work. I've had the opportunity to work with Valerie quite a bit here on Kauai, and she's just been tremendously supportive and just kind of a shining light on the island, in my opinion. So thanks, Valerie and Jonathan, both of you.
Thank you, Alan. We will be loving on the office staff a little more during the State of the Conference address. You'll want to be there. Jonathan and Valerie will have some reports at that time as well. But thank you, and I concur. I'm very excited with our new ACMs and the work and ministry that they've been involved in.
I've already spoken to, but I'd like to say one other thing. First of all, yes, absolutely. The acknowledgement that was given of the communications with the friend and also the Coconut Wireless. And I was thinking about that question about what could we as a group do to support the conference. One of the pieces of feedback that I think we got in the feasibility study was that a lot of people really don't know what the conference does and don't have as much information as would be useful. And one thing that we can do is encourage people. I constantly run into people who aren't subscribed to the Coconut Wireless and don't get the friend, and that we can really advocate for people to subscribe to both of those so that they're more aware of what's going on.
Thank you, Linda. That's a brilliant idea. I appreciate that. And both of those are free, right? So you just go to the Hawaii Conference website. There's a subscription button and you just can subscribe there. They are opt-in, and that's designed. I think there's some laws that tell us we have to do it that way. We just can't send you stuff without you asking for it. So, so if your friends or family are not getting them and they would like to get them, we're happy to provide those free of cost to them.
I'm just going to jump in on that one as well. Because once upon a time, I was employed as a communicator at the conference level. And incidentally, I always knew when my colleagues hadn't read this stuff we'd been distributing. But the problem that I faced then, and it's a similar problem in these days, I call it the pastor's desk problem. That is, that communications would be directed towards pastors of our local churches and would arrive, would sit on their desks, and might or might not be distributed to other folks who would be interested in that information within that congregation. So you and I, we are the pastors whose desks that these communications land on. And it's enormously important, I think, to the ministry of the Hawaii Conference that we serve as basically we are the local newspaper deliverer in our churches. So spread the word, spread the gospel. And thanks to the communicators.
I'm wondering if the PDF version could be posted on the conference on Facebook. That's what we do with our Iau Pepa, is we post a PDF version so that people can actually go in and download it on their own.
I'll comment on that. So it is available on our website. And when I remember and have the time to put it on Facebook, then I do that as well. And so if you folks can share from there, that would be awesome when it is up. But it is on the website if anybody wants to grab that link and share it with your congregations.
Personally, I like getting the magazine itself. It's beautiful. The latest one with the birds were beautiful. And that makes it more appealing to read. And the various, it's not only David who does it, it's Jonathan or Valerie or some other person does the lead article. So I don't know how much it costs, but I like getting the real one.
Well, we are coming up on the end of our time together. I want to thank you all. My goal for our time was just for you all to be loved on and to be thanked for your support of the Friends of the Conference appeal. It has shifted into what you can do for us, which is a nice conversation, but wasn't my purpose for today. But I appreciate right there, it just shows you what an influence you are within this conference and how you think and why we love you all so much, because you help us do better in ourselves, and we appreciate that. Thank you for your time. Blessings on your day. We do have a 12:30 workshop. The Ohana Kalapapa group will be presenting a workshop then. And then just a reminder that we're back at 3 p.m. That will be the opening plenary session, no votes today, but all the logistical stuff we got to get through that Eric is thankfully is responsible for. And then the state of the conference address will follow that. And then at 6:30, if you've not heard him, Kapali Lyons will be presenting, one of our keynote speakers will be presenting a lecture on the Ali'i and the early invitation for Christians to be here, and really how the Ali'i were a key part of the success of the work that they accomplished, ministry and mission that they accomplished. And I would encourage you to be a part of that. It's a fabulous lecture that he brings. Thank you all. Blessings upon your lives, and may God continue to honor all that you do. Thank you.